Morning, Nigeria. It is another beautiful morning. It is the beginning of another week. And it is your morning show, your favorite morning show, the Daybreak on Trust Television, coming to you live here. I'm here, our studio in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. And I'm Abdulaziz as usual. And thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Well, I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Good morning, and indeed, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, Abdul.
Good morning, Husseina. How are you doing? How was the weekend?
Thank you. The weekend was a bit stressful, but it was okay.
Well, okay, life continues, as the saying goes, and I don't know, this World Q is coming. I don't know what is actually happening now.
Reports actually have it that, by the end of the month, we would have enough.
They will clear the queues.
Yes, the queues will be cleared.
But the queues are still here.
Funny. Yeah, exactly. It's not funny at all because, there's no fuel.
Exactly.
That's one. Even if you get the queue is too long, sometimes you actually stay for hours and you're not able to get at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And you have to work, you have to go places. Once you decide to go on public transport, it's another,
it's another stress.
It's another stress. not just stress, talking about, the cost of
the cost exactly has gone up.
Yes, exactly. So
the gun has gone up. Seriously, because even coming back from the airport, I traveled during the week and coming in, the airport taxis advising means to even bypass the apps, instead of the, app prices, they will now try and say, oh, because of fuel, we can't take with that price and this and that. And so, you have to reason with them somehow.
It's true. Really, but, we hope things get better.
We hope so. We hope so. So maybe let's just have a look at some of the headlines this morning. Concerns as £1 trades for 1,000 naira at parallel market.
Unemployment, population, not Nigeria's problem, but lack of ideas, says Governor Sule.
Binani telling urges Buhari to intervene in primary election nullification.
Now let's take a look at the details of these stories. The Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Pauline Talon, has urged President Muhammadu Buhari and the First Lady Aisha Buhari to intervene in the nullification of the All Progressives Congress governorship primary election in Adamawa State that produced Senator Aisha Dahiru Binani as the party's candidate. Talon, who made the call during the News Agency of Nigerian Ministerial Forum in Abuja, said the decision to nullify the candidate was unacceptable. The minister, who described the problem that led to the nullification as a party issue, said that the judgment should be reversed as the results of the governorship primary election clearly showed that she won. She also called on women and men of goodwill to support female candidates in the 2023 general elections and beyond for the overall growth and development of the nation.
Okay, meanwhile, Nasarawa State Governor Engineer Abdullahi Sule has said population is not the problem of Nigeria when it comes to unemployment, but the lack of ideas and initiatives among youth. Governor Sule stated this during this year's Employability and Entrepreneurship Training Program for youth organized by the Human Capital Development Office in Lafia, the state capital. According to him, with what is presently happening in countries like India and China, with their population of over 1 billion people each, Nigeria's population could not be the reason for the high rate of unemployment. He restated the commitment of his administration towards youth and women, particularly on human capital development, saying this explains why the state government is deliberately embarking on the training of youth across the states to become entrepreneurs and self-reliant, as well as employers of labor.
Moving away from that story, the sharp fall of the naira against the foreign currencies continues over the weekend, with the British pound crossing 1,000 naira in the parallel market. There are fears that the dollar, which has also been on a steep rise in value against the naira, may cross 1,000 naira any moment from now. The current black market rate, which is, though not recognized by the Central Bank of Nigeria, has now almost doubled the official rate, thereby widening the disparity and putting more pressure on businesses. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had last week raided some bureau de change operators in Lagos, Abuja, and Kano in a bid to tackle the rising exchange rate, but this has not stopped the naira depreciation. Many Nigerians have taken to social media, I beg your pardon, as the British pound was exchanged for 1,005 naira over the weekend.
Moving on, let's look at some more packages this morning. Culture binds people together irrespective of social status one occupies anywhere in the world. I beg your pardon, 2022 Lemza annual gathering of Sayawa clan of Tapawa Balewa local government area of Bauchi State corroborates this notion. Large crowd of people from far and near converge on Tapawa Balewa to witness the event, thereby boosting the economy of the area. Trust TV's Adamu Imam, who was there, reports.
Many Nigerians believe that culture tells more about where people come from, especially when it depicts norms and values of a particular tribe. Isya Abdu is the chairman of the Lemza Festival 2022, and he said this year's event is meant to exhibit their cultural identity.
People have come from all areas, even from outside the country, people have come. So we want to appreciate everybody, and it has helped us to actually sustain the culture, at least for this year. So continuity will continue to sustain the culture, and that will be the basis of let me say, the identification of the people.
He says color of festival attire symbolizes their redemption as human beings.
Noted is the black, which shows that we were born as sinners, and we were children of the devil. So we were in darkness. Christ came and shed his blood for us. That is the red. So this blood that he shed for us now cleansed us. We are now as white as snow.
Chairman of Sayawa community in Lagos State says unity is paramount as they celebrate yet another year of bountiful harvest. Waiga Allah Daniel Zah, youth leader, urged youth of the area to conduct themselves responsibly during the 2023 general elections.
Sayawa Desire people is a unique day for us. Everywhere we want to celebrate this very day. To remember this day, this is the day that after all the farming we have harvested the produce, we have to celebrate it. So it's been a natural activity that has been going on.
To call on my youth, since the 2023 election is around the corner, and the INEC have officially announced the date of collecting the PVC, that they should try as much as possible to went to their locations and obtain their PVC, because that is the only weapon.
The Sayawa people seized the opportunity of the annual cultural festival to boost economic activity, and that is white sugarcane harvests is one known as agricultural occupation of the people.
Quite interesting indeed. Now let's move on to more stories. In the early days, people had no means of transport, but whenever they had to go somewhere, they walked on foot and used animals to carry their goods. However, the invention of the wheel proved to be the best thing that happened to man, as it made transport easier. In this report, Beatrice Kurute Maiduguri met a man who has never used any form of transportation aside or apart from his legs. The report.
We apologize for a glitch in this report. We'll come back to it. But now moving on, Social Democratic Party, SDP, has inaugurated 222-member campaign council headed by a former female commissioner for women affairs in Adamawa State. Titi Malik with a vow to win the 2023 elections in all contested positions. The party governorship candidate, Dr. Umar Ardo, said the basis of appointing a woman to lead the campaign council is in line with gender politics, which the state has taken. Salis Lawan has the report.
The SDP gubernatorial candidate, Ardo, who expressed optimism of emerging victorious at the polls, prayed for PDP in Adamawa not to be disqualified so that they can compete favorably.
We are going to conquer hunger, we are going to conquer illiteracy, we are going to conquer poverty, we are going to conquer corruption, we are going to conquer disease, we are going to bring about fundamental changes that will visibly be seen to affect the life of our people. Any developmental change of whatever nature, if you have not seen it visibly affect the people, it is of no essence.
Speaking after the inauguration ceremony, the newly appointed Director General, SDP Campaign Council, Titi Malik, vowed to work assiduously toward the successful outing of the party come 2023 general polls in the state.
What we expect from the people of Adamawa State and our campaign council is that Dr. Ardo is the best alternative for Adamawa State at this moment, because we believe that he is going to deliver good governance to the people of Adamawa State. So my position as the Director General today and being inaugurated today, we are going to work hard. We are going to be committed to seeing that we win the 2023 election.
Thank you. The only candidate we have now in Adamawa State is Dr. Umar Ardo, is a SDP candidate. So what I want to tell Adamawa people, we have serious problem and we need their attention. We want them to know the situation we are now.
Indeed, all these politics of godfatherism, politics of mafianism, the people of Adamawa State need to set that type of political, or I can say a barbaric nature of politics aside and bring in new politics where all people should be inclusive in their governance.
The campaign council was then urged to be sincere, truthful, and committed to ensuring the party's victory come 2023. From Yola, Salis Lawan, Trust TV News.
Well, it's just a few months to go to the elections, and it's
activities
good to know that
are high up, everywhere.
Parties are doing whatever it takes, to make sure they win.
Exactly, very interesting. As you said, so it's very interesting for Adamawa State. Now, when the APC, when a woman emerged as the APC flag bearer, the governor of the state quickly dropped his own serving deputy to pick a woman as running mate for the next election. And then Dr. Ardo is also now, the SDP candidate, picking a woman to lead the campaign as the DG. Well, I think, it's trying to...
There seems to be a lot of, interesting things going on in Adamawa politics.
Yeah, very
Adamawa
interesting.
State politics. Very interesting.
But Adamawa is always full of intrigues. Its politics is always very unique in terms of intrigues every time. It's one state that is very full of activities politically, every season.
Well, may the best man win.
Yeah, of course.
All right. All right, let's move on to more reports. Tea drinking culture is growing in Abuja, with many tea spots springing up in the nation's capital. People from different walks of life take tea for different reasons. Trust TV's Kabir Lawang reports.
No matter what the reason is, tea can be served iced or hot, but its benefits go far beyond refreshment. There is plenty of research findings showing that drinking tea can improve one's health. In the Federal Capital Territory, however, tea sellers further explain that aside the health benefit, it has now become a tradition for consumers to take tea.
Seldomly, not always. I take tea seldomly. Early in the morning or when I get to office, when I get off it, I take tea. Seldomly, once in a while before work. That is if I'm feeling hungry, early hours of the morning, and I needed to take something that will not be too weighty in my system. Then I take tea.
If I take I used to take Bonfita. When I take Bonfita, it makes me look healthy, and it's very good for my body. Because it's working for body. That is why even though it costs, you have to.
Awal Ibrahim, who sells tea, added that tea comes in different varieties and flavor, and even differs in prices. Tea comes in different prices and varieties. We have garlic tea, we have flavor and ginger, and lots of them. It serves as remedy to most tea consumers. While some take it before the meal, so many prefer taking it after every meal. Tea taking is very common here in the Federal Capital Territory. Most people come here to buy it in the morning hours for breakfast and take it at work. Some go for garlic, while some go for other variety according to their own decision. Consumers said they derive pleasure in taking tea for breakfast or at dinner, given the body system benefits. I take tea regularly. I like taking it without putting sugar or milk. It works more for me than mixing it with any content, be it sugar or other tea.
I take tea because it helps a lot in the body. Like this morning, I drank tea. Tea gave me energy. The energy make me to be strong, to do work very well.
While traditional teas have less than 50% of what typically is found in coffee, herbal blends have no caffeine, meaning one can consume it without effect on its nervous system. Kabir Lawal, Trust TV News, Abuja.
That's a very interesting story, from Kabir Lawal. Talking about Meshai, I think that's more like our own Meshai.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't think you go to these kind of places. Of course, there are other tea spots like for
they're different. It depends on
fanciful ones.
Exactly, the fancy ones, and there are these ones, and it depends on the kind of tea one wants to
exactly.
take. There are lots of tea spots as well, aside the Meshai.
Exactly.
Lots of other tea spots, springing up
so
in
many
Abuja.
tea spots these days.
Yes,
and in fact, even in some upscale restaurants these days, they include tea in their menu.
Yeah, it's actually good to know that people have embraced drinking tea, because tea is very, very important.
Yeah,
a lot of people find it difficult to take warm water, especially in the mornings when they wake up. So drinking tea helps a lot. Different types of tea, but even some people call coffee tea.
You don't patronize me, Shai.
No, I don't. I make my tea at home.
That's interesting, but of course, it also shows like. People are becoming more and more entrepreneurial, and also people change of culture. Culture actually is something that evolves over time. And things will start gradually, and then it becomes
I know a lot of Northerners love tea, but now you have even Southerners drinking so much tea. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
So
tea is good for health as well.
Cheers to tea.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much. With this, let's go on a short break, and when we come back, the show will continue.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV, and it's time for us to review the newspaper at this hour. We already have our guest in the studio, Mukhtar Suleiman. He's a public affairs analyst joining us for an analysis of the stories on the papers. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. So like I always say, it's nice looking forward to Monday.
All right, so before we move on to the analysis, let's take a look at the front page of the national dailies. The lead story on Daily Trust newspaper today talks about the cost of living crisis, and it says civil servants engage in menial jobs to feed families. Workers as caterers, tricycle riders after work, and boost production to lower inflation, says economists. Details of the story can be found on page 4. We have more stories. Daily Trust economists worried over budget deficit, Naira redesign, present options. And you can find details of that on page 23. We also have on insecurity, bring in mercenaries, create border patrol force, report advises federal government. Details on page 3. And Kano APC crisis intrigues as Kwankwaso woos Dogwa to NNPP on page 13. Now there's a pictorial there of the Deputy Governor of Taraba State, Engineer Haruna Manu, and Governor Darius Ishaku Dixon, Executive Director, Humanitarian Northeast Development Commission, and a host of others during the presentation of food and non-food items donated by the NEDC in Taraba State Government, and also to Taraba State Government and also to Jalingo. All right, so these are some of the stories on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, up next is the Nation newspaper, where from the top of the page there is a story saying COP27 Buhari world leaders tackle climate. Story on page 2 and 3. And then just beside it, dollar scarcity worsening. Dollar scarcity worsening petrol supply, say marketers. And by the right of it, JAM, only CBT centers with laptops will be accredited. Story on page 3. Then leave judiciary out of your woes, Ocean APC tells PDP. And the major story here speaks about another governor threatens to quit Atiku campaign. Bala Mohammed, PDP presidential candidate, working against my re-election, and Wiki marking the others to sustain opposition against ex-VP Otom Blast Atiku. These are some of the riders on the story that is leading today's Nation newspaper. And just below that, CBN's digital currency yet to gain traction. And below that, courts will decide ASU's withheld salary, says Ingige. And, the pictorial, and of course, it has a headline below it saying 2 Pakistani, others held for cocaine skunk trafficking. And, it shows the picture of the 2 suspects and some of the drugs recovered from them. On the red strip just below that, Lagos begins clampdown on unpainted commercial buses. Then ISWAP commander killed. Story on page 5. So these are stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, let's move on to the next paper, which is the Punch newspaper. Now, the lead story here talks about the presidential town hall. Economy, security dominate as Atiku Tinubu's keep debate. We also have writers on that story that says Obi, Kwankwaso, Okowa, Kola Abiola prefer solutions. Protests erupt over PDP APC presidential candidate's absence. Tinubu had fixed engagement with Mina farmers before invitation, says PCC. From the top of the page there, you have Forex crisis. Trapped funds hit $567 million as federal government meets airlines. And writers that says Ministry, Emirates negotiate flight resumption. CBN may opt for part payment, minister's aid. And then on half salary, ASU ESCO meets lecturers, mall sit at home. Just beside the nameplate there, we have moribund Ajaokuta still spends 29 billion naira on personnel. And there's a pictorial there of 19 people dying as Tanzania plane plunges into lake. We have more stories. ISWAP attacks claim 15,111 so far, says think tank. We also have PDP crisis won't stop Atiku's victory, says Senator Urogide, and FRSC backs officer who injured pregnant woman. And these are the stories on the Punch newspaper.
Okay, up next is This Day newspaper. The lead story on This Day this morning: at Arise Presidential Town Hall series, candidates lay out agendas, and the story has Riders Concourse, military personnel grossly inadequate. Obi, we will ensure prudent management of resources. Atiku, if Nigeria is working for everybody, no one will want out. And then Abiola Buhari's underutilization of NSS office escalated insecurity. And then beside the lead story is a pictorial showing, the birthday of the billionaire Femi Otedola, chairman of Grego PLC and chancellor of Augustine University, and with his family. And then top of the page, Kenyatta, no government can address all Nigeria's problems, says reinventing the wheel a challenge that must be addressed. Declares continuity succession plan critical to development. Ministerial retreat has helped to keep us in check, Buhari posits. And below that, Atiku is G3. He knows I will win 2023 presidential poll. Story on page 42. So these are some of the stories on the, that can be found in today's This Day newspaper.
All right, up next is Guardian newspaper. From the top of the page there, we have APC absent as Obi Kwankwaso Abiola Okowa parlay at first presidential town hall. We have Akintoye distances Ilana Omo Odua from attack on military base at Ado Odota. The lead story here is on COP27. Inflation, energy security frustrate communities to climate change. And riders on that story that says Nigeria, others push for more oil exploration. UN says will hold world leaders accountable. African countries most affected by climate change, says COP27 president. World's green agenda undermines Africa's priorities, says Ayuk. We also have more stories there. Nigeria deserves permanent seat at UN Security Council, says Gambari. Why illegal bunkering may not end soon in Niger Delta. Details can be found on page 3. The real scorecard of President Buhari. There's an editorial on page 16. And another ASU strike bodes danger. Huriwa warns federal government. Konoa rejects half pay. And these are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
Let's now take a look at Leadership newspaper, where the lead story says, in breach of Electoral Act, INEC shields political parties over unaudited accounts. And, then up in the page, it has a story that says, private sector, 2023, give peace a chance, Olutayo tells Nigerians. And students warn against another ASU strike as union meets today. Below the masthead, private sector operators decry incessant summons by National Assembly. And just below that, Atiku absent as Obi, Kwankwaso, Abiola face Nigerians at Arise News debate. And Nigeria's insecurity requires holistic approach, says Agora policy. And Aseni partners Italy, Jordan, Czech Republic to revolutionize Agric. And lastly, Ghanaian protesters demand Akufo-Addo's resignation over economic crisis. So these are stories on the front page of Leadership newspaper this morning.
All right, we'll take the final paper, which is Business Day. We have the lead story here that says, Ghost of Jilted FX, subsidy reforms haunts Nigerians. At the top of the page there, we also have manufacturers, alternative energy spends up to 51% in H1. And we also have an analysis on Glencore. Glencore had front row seats to Nigeria's rot and cashed in. And there's also a story on Business Day partnering with PricewaterhouseCoopers on My Family, My Business. And these are some of the stories on Business Day today. And with that, we're done reading out the stories on the major dailies in Nigeria. We'll move on to the analysis right now. We still have our guest in the studio, Mukhtar Suleiman. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, good morning,
It's been a slow news weekend.
It's what?
It's been a sort of a slow news weekend.
Oh yeah, exactly. It was.
No much drama.
No much drama apart from the presidential debate last night.
Yeah, I was hoping that I was going to there was going to be a lot of drama from that, but there wasn't really.
Wasn't much,
It's like everybody came scripted and they stuck to the script. I couldn't watch most of it because I was a bit under the weather over the weekend, but I was able to keep. I just played it in the background while I was sleeping, so I could hear some of the conversations that ensued. But it sounded well. Well, they all sounded promising. Yeah. Honestly, it's unlike the conventional way we've seen debates in the country before, where maybe it's because the vice presidential candidates have evolved, so to speak. The Buhari administration have taught us that vice presidential candidates are always the spokesperson for the presidency, so to speak. And well, let's hope that
So with the,
we'll see
with
how
the top
things
two
go.
absent, it's from the reviews. Actually, I haven't watched it because I was busy. But from the reviews, you could see that with the top two absent, the two lower was actually I had they really shine very well.
The Tinubu's campaign,
Obi and
Kwankwaso.
Kwankwaso.
The Tinubu's campaign released a statement this morning, a very shabby one-page, word-looking statement. Yeah. I saw it on Bashir Ahmed's Twitter page late last night, just before midnight, and where he was saying that the presidential candidate has how to put this?
Had other engagements.
No, aside from other engagements, he said he has a uniform perspective of all town halls. So he does not want to start one and not attend all the remaining.
They said that so many other news organizations are organizing similar thing.
So
do you think that is not a reason enough?
For not attending?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to prioritize, what was it called? Arise News debate platform. But would INEC host one? I think that's another question. Would there be one that will be done in collaboration with INEC and other key stakeholders that will be a proper town hall for the country? That would be a valid question that we should ask. So I don't know, saying that you're not going to be there just because you don't want to, it sounded like an excuse you just cooked out or something. Honestly, that's how it just sounded. It just sounded like an excuse. You could have as well be there. You could have as well go to this one and not go to the rest. And I don't think anybody will hold it against you because the vice presidential candidates may not also be able to attend all the other town halls that will come up eventually along the line of the presidential race during this campaign period.
Yeah, so it is what do you call
we need to take a look at. We shouldn't be. If you're going to be the president, you should be a bit accessible. We all agree that the media serves as a bridge between the people and the government and the government. So if the media serves as that bridge, make yourself available to the media so that at least people can hear you directly from you.
All right.
Okay.
Let's have your thoughts on a very disturbing story talking about the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper. Reminds me of a proverb, a formulated proverb that actually come to stay. If you're in Nigeria, you need to have more than one stream of income. And here we have, civil servants engaging in menial jobs in order to feed their families. I think, if you ask me, everybody in Nigeria actually does that. But here we have civil servants who a lot of people look up to when it comes to, employment, working as caterers, tricycle riders, but economists have actually come out to say that it will boost in, or lower inflation.
Well, for civil servants looking at, it's sad that, have you seen, I'm trying to find the best way to say this that won't come off at this stage, but have you seen the salaries of civil servants, the salary scales of civil servants? It is pathetic. It's one of the most terrible salary scales. But then again, on the flip side, maybe that is why there is no much enthusiastic toward work from the civil servants. Maybe that's why. Like I would remember, I spent some time in one of the MDAs between January and toward the end of the year, and the civil servants barely come to the office. In fact, most of the work is being done by us, the consultants that were there in the office. They were doing next to nothing. There's just the job security that comes with being a civil servant, but most of the time that is it. So it might be the effect of the poor pay structure, because I know civil servants that were collecting 40,000 naira before tax. That's minimum wage before tax. There were some that were collecting 100. There were some that were directors and not collecting up to 200, which is almost similar to what ASU is also clamoring for. That needs to be reviewed, because the top 1% of government cannot keep spending the kind of money they are spending and then be expecting everybody else to just adjust. The government kept saying there's no money, there's high rise of inflation. Recently, they increased the severance package for the president, the vice president, and the rest of them. It's not fair. If the government continues like this, I've said this before, we're most likely going to see the same situation of what happened with the French Revolution happen again. Because you are telling us there's no money. You are asking us to give something to adjust, but you are increasing your pay. You are living la vida loca. You are spending extra. But you're telling us, oh, there's still no money, there's still no money, there's still no money. It doesn't make sense. I think that needs to be checked. The government needs to also give. We need to see that, oh, they are also struggling to see how we can also make ends meet. They are the top 1%, so to speak, spending money at that level, and then civil servants don't have as much. Of course, there's going to be corruption. Of course, there's going to be over budgeting. Of course, there's going to be budget padding and the rest of it. There's going to be siphoning of money. And we need to actually check that as a country.
Okay, but you said something which struck a chord in me. The civil servants who also don't come to work and all that. So isn't that an issue of cat before the horse or the horse before the cat? I mean, like in terms of work ethics, are they? Is it something you alluded to the fact that perhaps they are affected by the low pay and all that? But is that enough reason for people not to?
Government is not a business where you say the more you put in more efforts, the more money the government will generate. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, it's not a sales company. It's not entirely. It's an administrative setting.
Yeah.
So the same way I know a lot of civil servants that were not coming to the office. I knew civil servants that were coming to the office every day, but their pay did not change. The one that came, the one that did not come, will receive the same pay at the end of the month.
Well, lots of people have actually complained that the payment platform, that's the IPPIS, is actually responsible for...
Before even the coming of IPPIS, we've always had this issue of payment structure for government staff. Even before we went into that system, the salary scale is not fair. I have a friend that is currently in Dubai. She schooled and stayed back before this whole ban thing came up, and she's a secretary. She was telling me that her salary after tax is around $4,000, maybe $3,500. It's why most people want to leave, because the minimum wage in some other country is still far, far much more better than the minimum wage you have here, than even your maximum wage, so to speak, sometimes. But we really need to check that. Honestly, we need to check, because like the government is not a business structure; it is an administrative structure. So if there's no effective way of ensuring that people are incentivized enough to stay in the office and do their job judiciously, of course there are going to be greedy people who are going to go out of their way, and no matter how much you pay them, it's never enough. But at least make sure you reduce that significantly.
Okay, now something away from that. On the front page of Daily Trust still, there is this story which is on page 3, saying, advising government to bring in mercenaries. In 2014, there was that, just before the election, in 2015. Is this something that you think is a good idea?
I don't think it undermines our military. Okay. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a stupid thing to do. The insecurity in the country is not something that the military cannot handle. The problem with it is there's a hole in information sharing. There's somewhere it's leaking. And most of the security people I talk to will tell you it's coming from the political class. I saw a tweet once that was funny, but deep enough as well. A military man tweeted, I think it was from a burner account. He said, I can't remember exactly the word for word, but this is what he was saying. Make una go vote, and make una vote well. No between our come vote person go give us orders. No we'll shoot una. No, don't say army don't shoot una again. It was funny, but it was also deep as well. The political class have control over the military in terms of the way the constitution is designed and the way information is supposed to go. So if I don't think the military themselves are okay with sending their people to go and die, because it could be you as well, it could be any one of you. So there's a problem with the political class that needs to be checked, and unless we deal with that, we handle that, because we remember that there was an American that was kidnapped, and the military and their marine forces came into this country, went to that place, took the rescued the person and left, and our military did not know anything until they had left. And their justification was, we've shared information with your government, and it keeps getting leaked to the people who want to go and meet, and that's why we came in and did what we did and left. Is that, in terms of diplomacy, is that wrong? Yes, it is wrong. But on the flip side again, it's so hard to actually blame them entirely. I feel like that undermines us. It was very, very wrong. But then our own political class have not done enough to show that they have our best interest at heart.
All right, talking about security, there's an editorial on Daily Trust newspaper on page 17 that talks about withdrawing police protection for private citizens, and this is actually related to security details dying, in convoys.
This is where the mercenaries will be of good use. Where you bring them in, this is where they will be of good use. I have always been against police, having police escorting private, to private people. Pay security companies who, this is their job. The police is the property of the government and the property of the people, and should not protect you privately when you're not a government official, when it's not in the interest of the state.
Not even government official, but high value government official.
Yeah,
so
not
to
just
say,
even,
because
thank you.
I think there are some, even in the government cycle, that you will think, well, perhaps they don't deserve really.
Yeah, I've seen pictures and videos of senators in the UK who take the train. You see them standing in the train. This is a senator. That was a senator, and all of that happens. But in our country, it's not the same. If the countries are secured as they claim it is, why aren't they just driving the way they want? But on the flip side of it, is you get to find that one of the major reasons why they don't do that is there is this psychophancy we're still talking about, that I always talk about. There's still a psychophancy to it that they really enjoy, in terms of the people, in terms of the siren, the military men around. It provides this sense of self and importance that is not entirely always necessary, but they do it anyway. So it's crazy. Sometimes not even for the security reasons. It's just that sense of importance that it gives, that it provides. That's what they do.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I say, for example, you see people, as we say, members of the National Assembly living in Abuja, just go to the National Assembly and come back, but they still have a police escort. So, okay, that's a very, an important issue that, of course. And then, surprisingly, so many police inspector generals, as the editorial noted, so many have in the past mentioned that they will withdraw this kind of. So why do you think it's not happening?
It's an IGR method now. It's a way of generating money. I found out that you can actually pay. I remember somebody was explaining it to me. Like you pay the station or the division you take the policemen from.
Yeah, well, that's not official.
You pay them. I don't know if it's official, whether it's unofficial, but there's a way you pay the division, and then you also pay the policemen. Now, when the policemen look at how much they receive on a normal day, and how much you're going to be giving them for them to be present and as a security.
So, but why do you think the withdrawal is not happening?
This is why I'm saying. Okay, it's that thing about following the money. Wherever it is the money is coming from, whatever it is the money is, whoever it is that is funding it, it controls the entire process. Who pays the piper dictates the
So what's your take on giving security agencies targets?
I don't understand targets.
Like, and you said it's a revenue generation. Like,
yeah.
Yes. So giving them targets. Like
revenue
how
target.
much? Yes, revenue target. How much?
Are you serious? They give them targets.
I'm asking.
I don't know.
I don't think
That was shocking to me. They have become bankers.
There are allegations or insinuations that at the top brass, they like tax the lower ones, maybe the DPOs or the CPs, so that they, they make returns to some of the big people.
I'm not going to be surprised.
As I said, it's an allegation, but there is that insinuation that because of monies from those kind of arrangements, they actually. That's why I say it's not official. The only one you don't pay the government, but you pay through the ranks.
Because the only one I know of that I know somebody that has a police escort explained to me was you pay them at the division you take the policeman from, and then you keep, aside from the official salary that comes from you keep settling the policeman something just. So, and even the policemen like it because it's extra income. It's that thing we're saying on this thing that they are doing menial jobs to get to get more money and that.
So it complements the salary.
Complements the salary.
All right, let's move on to the front page of the Nation newspaper, and it says another governor quits or threatens to quit Atiku's campaign. What does this mean for the PDP in the 2023 elections? Because you have so many governors quitting.
For you to win elections, you need governors. If you're losing governors in your stronghold, because down south is where the strongholds of the PDP is. I think the governor threatening to leave is Bala Mohammed.
Yes.
I think it's Bala Mohammed. It's also shocking to me because I understand that Bala Mohammed was all part of the caucus that cheated Wiki. I don't know if you understand, because the way the whole thing happened during the primaries, Bala Mohammed was one of the people who stepped down for.
No, he did not.
Bala Mohammed?
Yeah.
Okay, no, sorry. Bala Mohammed was one of the people that was used to divide the votes. There's a way they said it happened, allegedly anyway. He was used to divide the votes, reduce the amount of votes that Wiki was supposed to get. It's why even after he lost after he came back from the presidential primaries, the party was willing to back him because, I think the SSG had won the primary ticket for the Governor Guba seat, but then with the influence of APC, they pushed INEC to postpone the deadline for the primaries. So when that happened, the party was willing to null the primaries in the state because the SSG refused to give the ticket back to, the placeholder thing. They started coming up with the whole innovation. And then the SSG refused to give him back the ticket, so they were ready to. There was it was even on the news where the party was saying they were going to cancel the primaries and do it again.
Yeah, I can't remember it was on the news because I felt that it was an internal arrangement, like they did.
There was an internal arrangement, but then it was an internal arrangement, but there was almost the same thing that happened to Ahmad Lawan was going to happen to him.
Okay.
Similar incident that happened to Ahmad Lawan.
Yeah, so actually, from the political grapevine, what I heard is that. It was actually one of the reasons that aggravated the crisis because he felt that some people, allegedly from the Atiku camp, who felt bad that he didn't step down for Atiku at the election, at the convention ground, were now trying to stop him from picking the ticket back.
The ticket back again.
Yeah.
I know there was that issue of there was that issue of him getting back his ticket when he went back, but the party was willing to back him. Because I remember that it was on the news, they put out a statement they were going to cancel the elections, that they gave a very vague excuse and they were going to do it again. But eventually I didn't get to hear when they redid it.
Yeah, they did.
Well, they redid it again.
Yeah.
So that's also another distance. So whatever it is
But what does this mean for Atiku?
Atiku is losing his people too much. And I think he needs to sit down and weigh if IU goes, the pros and cons. If IU stays, the pros and cons, and if you calculate the sunk cost from the two variables of what he has, is it better for him and everybody else, or which one of them is going to be the best choice for him going forward? I think he needs to actually evaluate that.
Somehow rested the issue of IU going because I think they have said that they had moved on.
But it's obvious that they haven't, and it's obvious that there's an issue. You're losing your strongholds. It's obvious that there's an issue. Time is actually not on
their side, by the way.
It's obvious that there's an issue. The way you win elections, you need your governors in the states for you to easily win. Because if your governors have mandates that make them win elections, that means they can transfer their mandates to you. That's a tested and trusted mandate that you already have in the state. So if the governors are saying they're not going to transfer their mandates to you, that means they're not going to campaign or endorse you, then that's a problem in the electoral process. It's democracy. That's how it works. So I think he really needs to check that.
Okay, let's take a look at the COP27, and the president of COP27 saying that African countries are most affected by climate change, and you have Nigeria saying in the year, in how many years time that they would achieve zero emission. Do you even see that happening in Africa? Because you have so many people burning.
Do you know the irony of it? Africa as a whole continent, constitutes for less than 1.5% of the carbon emission in the world. How much industrialization do we have here in Africa? I'm not just talking about Nigeria now. The whole of Africa as a whole, all 53 countries, 54 countries, amount for less than 1.5% of the carbon emission in the world. The only problem is that Africa is most affected by the climate change. Why? Is that question I usually ask myself. Is it the climate change or is it poor governance? Because you look at the issues of flooding that are happening already currently. If you trace the root issue, there's no waterways for those waters to go, for that water to go. There are no pathways for, we're not creating structures to counter the issues that are coming. But these are existent in European countries, despite the fact that they are the ones that have the most carbon emission. Because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis right now, Russia has cut the gas supply to the whole of Europe. Most European countries are going back to coal. They are reopening their coal mine. And that, in fact, before, when they were contributing for the whole 90% of the carbon emission, most of them have shut down their coal mine. Imagine now when they reopen their coal mines again. Some countries are already going back already. They are really reopening their coal mines. So when we say things like zero emission in Nigeria, for example, well, are we really emitting anything? We're not really emitting anything. Per se. So and it's so difficult for us. It's so difficult. If it was so easy to stay green 100%, why haven't countries like the United States achieved that? Why haven't countries like Germany achieved that? Staying green 100% is not. I don't think it's a very possible thing. But we can reduce the carbon emission. I agree that we can reduce the carbon emission. But putting that burden on African countries is unfair, because we're not the emission that cumulatively all the countries is less than 1.5%. So it's absolutely unfair that the council wants to put that burden of this thing on Africa. Yes, there's a lot of funding coming here for climate change right now. Climate advocacy, everybody wants to be on that front. But I feel like if we can tackle the governance problem, where governments can put in structures that are effective to ensuring that most of these things are actually dealt with, then we can deal with most of the climate effects.
Okay, now let's have a quick look at this story on the front page of The Punch. They say moribund Ajakuta still spends 29 billion on personnel. You are laughing because it collocates with the story of the our refineries who are still being staffed. So you wonder what these staff are doing.
I remember I saw an analysis of this similar analysis some years ago on how much is being spent on personnel for a steel company that has not generated one knot, like a single knot for God knows how many years. It's absurd. Honestly, it is totally absurd. So what are the personnel doing there? I saw the breakdown where there is breakdown for maintenance. Maintenance of what? Of what machinery? Machineries that are not working. That's why the best term there is the moribund steel company. Like it's not. So when the monies are being, and there's cash backing for most of this, it's not just even budget. There's often cash backing for it, because it's one thing if there's a budget for something, and there's another thing there's a cash backing or cash release. So the monies are going where for doing what exactly? Sometimes I'm confused if the steel company is the responsibility of the state government or that of the federal government. Should the state be the one to push for its revamping and its reopening?
Revival, yeah.
Yes, or its revival. Or is it the federal? Should we leave it to the federal government? Left for me, the state should do that. This is where I go back to
federal government property.
Yeah, but this is where I go back to the issue of governance and all of that. I'm a strong believer of the efficiency of pure federalism, where every state is responsible for its own resources, and they should pay money back to the central, something like what the United States does. If we do that, state governments will be forced to ensure that their states attract foreign direct investment, because they will need money for them to run their government. So if that happens, I have a strong feeling that will be one of the kicker for the revival of the Jakarta Steel Company. Not just that, and a whole lot of other issues that most states need to actually look inwards and find a way to ensure that they actually right. It should even be a solution for insecurity, if you ask me, because when your state is not secured, you don't get investment. When you don't get investment, you don't generate money. When you don't generate money, you don't have enough money to actually run government. So we actually need to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Mukhtar Suleiman, a public affairs analyst, for gracing us with your presence this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, with that, we'll take a break, and when we return at the top of the hour, the show continues.
This is the road leading up to the Lokoja Bridge from Abuja, and as you can see, tankers carrying fuel, trucks carrying livestock, perishables, and commuters trying to make their way from point A to point B have all been slowed down as a result of the flooding going on in Lokoja.
As I tell you, so my house is inside water like this.
This is my house. This green zip is my house.
We have no option than to come here and look for what we chop.
This water have really spoiled many things. Even as I'm talking to you, I'm not in my own house.
I want to encourage them and assure them that their governor, the governor they elected, had come to see them, and government officials have been going there to see them. They are not in this alone. We are with them.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Good morning and welcome to Daybreak, and thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us this beautiful morning. I'm Darshan Husseina Usman.
And I'm Abdulaziz Abdulaziz. Thank you very much for joining us on your favorite morning show, the Daybreak on Trust TV. It is another Monday, another beginning of a week. And we hope we all have a beautiful week ahead.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's take a look at the highlights at this hour. Binani, Talon urges Buhari to intervene in primary election nullification.
Concerns as £1 trades for 1,000 naira at parallel market.
Passenger plane crashes into lake in Tanzania. Now the details.
The Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Pauline Talin, has urged President Muhammadu Buhari and the First Lady Aisha Buhari to intervene in the nullification of the All Progressives Congress APC's governorship primary election in Adamawa that produced Senator Aisha Tahiru Binani as the party's candidate. Talin, who made the call during the News Agency of Nigeria Ministerial Forum in Abuja, said the decision to nullify the candidate was unacceptable. The minister, who described the problem that led to the nullification as a party issue, said that the judgment should be reversed, as the result of the governorship primary election clearly showed that she won. She also called on women and men of goodwill to support female candidates in the 2023 elections and beyond for the overall growth and development of the nation.
Away from that story, the sharp fall of the naira against the foreign currencies continue this weekend, with the British pound crossing 1,000 naira in the parallel market. There are fears that the dollar, which has also been on a steep rise in value against the naira, may cross 1,000 naira any moment from now. The current black market rate, which is thought to be recognized by the Central Bank of Nigeria, has now almost doubled the official rate, thereby widening the disparity and putting more pressure on businesses. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had last week raided some bureau de change operators in Lagos, Abuja and Kano in a bid to tackle the rising exchange rate, but this has not stopped the naira depreciation. Many Nigerians have taken to social media as the British pound was exchanged for 1,005 naira over the weekend.
Meanwhile, a precision air flight carrying 45 people made a crash landing into Lake Victoria on Sunday while attempting to reach a nearby airport in Tanzania. At least 3 people were killed in the crash. Flight PW494, which departed from the commercial capital Dar es Salaam, crash landed into the lake as it was approaching the lakeside city of Bukoba. The cause was not immediately clear, but the report said the incident took place amid storms and heavy rains. The Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan called for calm as the rescue operation continued.
All right, with this, we have actually wrapped up the highlights at this hour. Let's take a look at some of the stories that we have. Let's talk about this next one. Culture binds people together irrespective of status or social status one occupies anywhere in the world. The 2022 Lempzar annual gathering of Sayawa clan of Tafawa Balewa local government area of Bauchi State corroborates this notion. Large crowds of people from far and near converged on Tafawa Balewa to witness the event, thereby boosting the economy of the area. Trust TV's Adamu Imam reports.
Many Nigerians believe that culture tells more about where people come from, especially when it depicts norms and values of a particular tribe. Isha Abdu is the chairman of the Lempzar Festival 2022, and he said this year's event is meant to exhibit their cultural identity.
People have come from all areas, even from outside the country, people have come. So we want to appreciate everybody. And it has helped us to actually sustain the culture, at least for this year. So continuity will continue to sustain the culture. And that will be the basis of, let me say, the identification of the people.
He says color of festival attire symbolizes their redemption as human beings.
Noted is the black, which shows that we were born as sinners. sinners, and we were children of the devil. So we were in darkness. Christ came and shed his blood for us. That is the red. So this blood that he shed for us now cleansed us. We are now as white as snow.
Chairman of Sayawa community in Lagos State says unity is paramount as they celebrate yet another year of bountiful harvest. Waiga Allah Daniel Zah, youth leader, urged youth of the area to conduct themselves responsibly during the 2023 general elections.
Sayawa Desire people is a unique day for us. Everywhere we want to celebrate this very day. To remember this day, this is the day that after all the farming, we have harvested the produce, we have celebrated it. So it's been a natural activity that has been going on.
To call on my youth, since the 2023 election is around the corner, and the INEC have officially announced the date of collecting the PVC, that they should try as much as possible to went to their locations and obtain their PVC, because that is the only weapon.
The Sayawa people seized the opportunity of the annual cultural festival to boost economic activity, and that is white sugarcane harvests is one known as agricultural occupation of the people.
Tea drinking culture is growing rapidly in Abuja, with many tea spots springing up in the nation's capital. People from different walks of life take tea for different reasons. Trust TV's Kabiru Lawan reports.
No matter what the reason is, tea can be served iced or hot, but its benefits go far beyond refreshment. There is plenty of research findings showing that drinking tea can improve one's health. In the Federal Capital Territory, however, tea sellers further explain that aside the health benefit, it has now become a tradition for consumers to take tea.
Seldom, not always. I take tea seldomly. Early in the morning, or when I get to the office. When I get to the office, I take tea seldomly, once in a while before work. That is if I'm feeling hungry, early hours of the morning, and I needed to take something that will not be too weighty in my system. Then I take tea.
If I take I used to take Bonfita. When I take Bonfita, it makes me look healthy, and it's very good for my body. Because it's working for body. That is why, even though it costs, you have to.
Awal Ibrahim, who sells tea, added that tea comes in different varieties and flavor, and even differs in prices. Tea comes in different prices and varieties. We have garlic tea, we have flavor and ginger, and lots of them. It serves as remedy to most tea consumers. While some take it before the meal, so many prefer taking it after every meal. Tea taking is very common here in the Federal Capital Territory. Most people come here to buy it in the morning hours for breakfast and take it at work. Some go for garlic, while some go for other variety according to their own decision. Consumers said they derive pleasure in taking tea for breakfast or at dinner, given the body system benefits. I take tea regularly. I like taking it without putting sugar or milk. It works more for me than mixing it with any content, be it sugar or other tea.
I take tea because it helps a lot in the body. Like this morning, I drank tea. Tea gave me energy. The energy make me to be strong, to do work very well.
While traditional teas have less than 50% of what typically is found in coffee, herbal blends have no caffeine, meaning one can consume it without effect on its nervous system. Kabir Lawal, Trust TV News, Abuja.
It is actually very interesting, you know, talking about the Meishai, they've actually upgraded, by the way. I saw salad, you know, eggs
they
and
are,
everything.
They are improving the business, which is something, as you said, is really brilliant because
they're more
that's
like
what
professional
value
chefs.
addition.
Yes.
You know, exactly. So you don't just be doing the same thing all
Over
the
and
time.
over
And I
again.
think there is a lesson that everyone will learn from that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a lot of lessons that I think a lot of us can learn from that.
Like
so
what
if you are doing something, always add value, improvise, do some additions, add some glitters here and there, and introduce some new things which will attract customers and clients.
I think it's not just one person. I think a few people actually came together. One person does the eggs and bread, the other person does the shai, you know, and it has this particular place that Kabiru went to, you know, had more space, so you could actually see more chairs and people coming in to sit. Even women, you hardly find women at a Meishai
joint.
But
exactly. Well, you know, there's the issue of giving reasons. If as a business owner you give reasons for people to, for example, your place is really good, you have comfortable chairs, or there's some privacy, you know, things like that, or even if the way you prepare the thing is done well. Reasons, just give reasons why people should come to you.
And one other reason I think a lot of people actually go visit Meishai shop is because of noodles. It's quick food,
exactly.
you know, especially
quick
if you
food,
do menial jobs, you know, you go there and in minutes, you know, you have your
you can have your meal and go.
Have your energy and go back to work.
Exactly.
You know, that's why it all boils down to, you know, culture and tradition, and that's why one must never forget their roots. Also reminds me of the previous report that we actually had. Yes, exactly. It's very, very important. And you know, no matter how modernized, you know, life becomes, no matter how much, you need to go back to your roots. You need to understand your tradition.
I think there is a huge lessons there. And in culture, there are so many things, heritage, history also, you know, and it also is a way of, you know, there is also the value system, you know, in all these cultures that you see. There are cultural values that are passed from generation to generation, which I think events like what we saw in Tafawa Balewa is very good to help, you know, as a tool of passing those cultural norms and values.
All right, with that, we'll take a breather, and when we return, the show continues.
That's great.
road leading up to the Lokoja Bridge from Abuja. And as you can see, tankers carrying fuel, trucks carrying livestock, perishables, and commuters trying to make their way from point A to point B have all been slowed down as a result of the flooding going on in Lokoja.
As I tell you, so my house is inside water like this.
This is my house. Big Grizzly is my house.
We have no option than to come here and look for what we chop.
This water have really spoiled many things. Even as I'm talking to you, I'm not in my own house.
I want to encourage them and assure them that their government, the governor they elected had come to see them, and government officials have been going there to see them. They are not in this alone. We are with them.
All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak on Trust TV. And with that, we'll move on to more on the show. The insecurity situation is escalating by the day, especially in communities of southern Katsina, otherwise known as the Funtua Zone. Funtua Zone, with 11 local government areas, is gradually coming under persistent bandits attacks, killings, kidnappings, rustling of animals and destruction of properties. In Katsina, Abdullahi Yamadi went to some communities in Funtua and Faskari local government areas where some residents say hardly one could find a community that is not affected by the terrorist attacks. His report.
Parents of the abducted children, who are mostly from poor backgrounds, living from hand to mouth, have been crying since the incident on Sunday afternoon. Some of them neither sleep nor eat for the past 6 days following the trauma of the abduction that has thrown the entire community into despair and apprehension.
Ni ina cikin halin damuwa, amma kuma ina roƙon Allah ya hito mana da su lafiya.
Maza ne ko mata?
Mata ne.
Shekara nawa?
Da 'yan shekara 18 da 'yan shekara 15.
Rana biyu aka ɗauka.
To wani hali kike ciki a halin yanzu?
Na fata na nake Allah ya hito mana da su lahiya.
Kuma na abin da ake yi don ganin cewa yaran nan sun fito?
An da damuwa ta Allah ya hito mana da su lahiya.
Akwai yanzu wani abu da ake yi, kuka ji labari ko ake yi a hukumance wanda gwamnati take yi ko jami'an tsaro suke yi don ganin cewa sun kubutar da su?
A'a. Ba a yi ba.
To ku me kuke yi?
Mu bakin kokari dai muna roƙon Allah ya hito mana da su mai fita ta alheri.
While seeking divine intervention, the parents are also calling for government's intervention to rescue the children from the hands of the terrorists. Now it is almost a week since the unfortunate abduction of our children, and it doesn't seem the government is doing something about it, and the owner of the farm is under arrest. In this situation, what do we do? Already, the terrorists are demanding the sum of 30 million naira ransom to secure the release of the abducted children, or in the alternative, the owner of the farm make himself available to them in the next couple of days. We are so much worried, confused and traumatized. We have exhausted all our efforts, and the bandits have been calling and threatening to sell our children out if their demands are not met. Speaking off camera, the Sarkin Rafin Katsina District Head of Merua, Sani Idris Sambo, gave assurances that plans are underway by the relevant stakeholders to rescue the children unhurt. He, however, expressed worries over increasing spate of insecurity bedeviling some parts of Mairua district, which has worsened living condition of many communities. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
A sad one indeed, but following the release of the 21 children earlier abducted on the farm in Mairua town of Faskari local government area, Abdullahi Amadi now joins us from Katsina for details. Good morning, Abdullahi, and thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Good morning, Darshan and Abdullahi.
Hello, Abdullahi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so what more can you tell us on the release of the children?
Well, information available indicate that parents have to pay the sum of 25,000 naira for each of the abducted children before regaining their freedom as part of their contribution for the release of the children. And this happened even as the children, the breadwinners of their families, almost all of them from poor background, as you can see from the report. Similarly, the owner of the farm also paid an undisclosed amount of money to the bandits before regaining their freedom. All the 21 children have reunited with their families amid tears of joy last Sunday, and last Saturday. Residents are commending the media, especially TV and Daily Trust, who have been on the issues since the unfortunate abduction almost a week ago. The district head of Mairua, Alajisani Idris Sambu, informed Trust Television just some couple of minutes ago that the parents are happy and the entire community are happy about the release of the children. Of course, you know, Mairua is, or rather, Faskari local government is part of Fontua zone. And the entire 21, or rather 11 local government of the zone are in a serious state of despair, banditry everywhere, kidnappings everywhere, killings, and so on and so forth. Hardly you find a community that has not been affected by this banditry. And people there are very much worried because, you know, this is the season of harvest. People are evacuating their farm produce to their various residences. And of course, they can no longer access their farms. And you know, Funtua area is the most agrarian area in Katsina State. They have a very fertile land, and most of them are farmers. So people there are very much worried that the pressure is too much on them. They want to evacuate their farm produce, and the bandits are threatening them almost day in, day out. So they're appealing to relevant authorities, especially the government, to do something about it, to enable them access their farms, evacuate their farm produce, and they live a very decent living. I think they need something. They need government intervention, honestly.
So, Abdullah, talking of government intervention, was there any move by the government to help secure the release of these children? What has happened officially since the abduction before the release of these children in Mairua?
Well, when we contacted the police public relations officer in Katsina, he told us that so many things are being done to secure the release of these children. But on the part of the parents, they were saying that nothing is being done by security operatives. They are only making support between them and the owner of the farm to secure the release of the children. And from what happened, they contributed 25,000 naira for each abducted child. And then the owner of the farm gave the lion's share of the money, even though we don't know the actual amount paid to secure their release. But you can understand from the three scenarios that it is only the families of the children and, of course, the owner of the farm that made effort towards the release of these children.
Okay, so what happens next now that these children have been released?
Well, they have been released, reunited with their families, and the community, from what I heard from the district head of Mairua, they are taking some measures towards ensuring that they have secured their community. And we learned that neighboring communities that are villages from the neighboring communities of Mairua are coming to Mairua town, and especially from 6 o'clock in the evening to pass the night there and go back to their ancestral homes the next morning. And this happens in almost every community. Less desolated communities go to much desolated communities to pass the night and then go back to their homes the next morning because of fear of attacks. So this is exactly what is happening in that area.
So Abdullahi, what's the general situation right now in Katsina? Of course, the Funtua zone, as you mentioned, this issue of Mairua kidnapping and all that, but also even in the other parts like around Batsari and Jibia, there are issues. What's the latest? What is happening, and what are officials actually doing beyond words of mouth in tackling this problem?
Well, indeed, there are a lot of issues in areas like Jibia, Batsari, Safana, Damusa, Kurifidusuma, where you can... there are a lot of issues there because so many communities have fled to other safer areas. For instance, in Batsari and Jibia, there are a lot of rural communities that have relocated to other places, and in some communities you can only find the bandits and the terrorists there that are the only people that are living in those communities. For instance, in Yangaye village, and so many communities, they have dislodged the original owners of the communities and are now going about their businesses freely without fear of any security operatives. So communities in Katsina zone, Funtua zone, honestly, there are so many issues there, and there are a lot of issues of insecurity there. Hardly a day passes without recording banditry, cattle wrestling, and other form of attacks. There are a lot of issues, honestly.
Okay, so can you tell us about the efforts of the military in the Funtua axis?
We have military base in almost every local government. But what the people are saying there is they prefer to work, or rather to see vigilantes other than military operatives, honestly, because to some extent the inaction of the military is worrisome there, because even if there is attacks in a nearby community, in a neighboring community with the military base, and the communities reported to the military, they hardly respond to their requests, or rather their complaints. So they prefer to see police and other security operatives other than the military.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdullahi Yamadi, for joining us and for this insight you gave us about the security situation in Katsina State. And we are now being joined in the studio by security and management consultant, Mr. Steve Okori, to continue this conversation. And thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
So what are your thoughts, regarding, you have seen the report,
Yes.
you have seen these peasant people, villagers who, as the reporter says, they live hand to mouth, who have their children abducted and all that. Thankfully, they have been released. And then, of course, the general overview that he has given us about the situation in Katsina State. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you see, the bandits or kidnappers, they are not interested whether the children that were adopted, whether their parents are peasant farmers or they live from hand to mouth. Their only interest is to see how ransom is paid, no matter how small, It's a worrying situation, and it's not just about Katsina alone. It's happening virtually everywhere. But unfortunately, the children were victims, and thank God that they've been released. And from the report by your reporter in Katsina, you see that there's clear, negligence on the part of the security agencies and on the part of government. Because from the report you heard that the government did not even play any role in their release or even trying to see how the ransoms were raised. So when you look at that zone, about 11 local governments, there's fast-carry local government amongst the local government in that zone. And there's a military base in fast-carry, So I expect that a lot would have been done, on the part of the military and the police. In the 11 local governments, there are also divisional police headquarters, But unfortunately, it happened in a community where there's no security presence. That's the unfortunate thing about this kind of adoptions. They happen in very rural communities where there's clearly no security presence. You can't see a policeman there, except when incidents like this happen. They will now begin to see how to invite the police to come over there.
Mr. Kwari, ironically, this is a community that actually has a police station, from what I saw in the report, and is actually also on the major road.
Wow. Then it shows that there's a clear unprofessional conduct on the part of the police that are supposed to protect lives and property there, But if you probe further, you see that this very farming community is not anywhere close to where the police station is, So there's, I think there was also a breakdown in communication, the period they were being adopted and all that, and when did the information even get to the police? That's something else. That's something we really need to look at, before they will not begin to see how to respond to such incident, So there's a lot that the law enforcement needs to do, to see how children, adults are protected and from being kidnapped or adopted.
The question so many people are asking right now is what happens after, now that they've been released? Will these children go back to farm? And what happens? We're talking about food security here, and the insecurity has made it impossible for farmers to even, go back to their farms.
Certainly.
Yes. So, but why do you think that, these kidnappings, cattle rustling, and this insecurity continues to go unabated?
You see, it takes us to the crime triangle, where you have the desire, opportunity, and the reward. Now, the human beings or criminal elements that carry out this crime, it's something that they crave to do. It's a desire, So it takes them for them to have a rethink, not to indulge in that. It's a personal thing. It's a decision that they have taken, that this is what they want to do, So the only reason or the only way I see that we can stop them from embarking or carrying out these criminalities is that the law enforcement should not avail them the opportunity, to carry out this crime, How do you do that now? It's continuous vigilance, surveillance, both ground and in the air, There's a lot that the security agencies need to do to see that they stop these criminal elements for carrying out these crimes of kidnapping, cattle rustling, and all that.
So, but beyond, what they need to do, which is actually fine.
Yeah.
You made the point earlier regarding you know, that what happened in this community that we saw, you know, the abduction of the children on farm. But then, don't you think that perhaps the police in that community or nearby may have fewer number, and of course maybe much more fewer arms or equipment than the abductors and the kidnappers who are coming usually in large number and all that? How is that, you know, an issue regarding you know, securing communities?
You see, we have said these times without number, on way and manner we feel that communities such as that can be protected, you know, considering the number of policemen that we have in Nigeria. You know, we have less than 400,000 policemen, you know, and we have well over 200 million Nigerians. And the number of communities that we have in this country are way too many that the number of policemen cannot police these communities. So now, how do we resort to policing these communities? We have suggested times with that number that there's need for us to engage local vigilante, you know, because these vigilantes live within their communities. It's possible to have local vigilantes in our communities, but it is not possible to have policemen, regular policemen in our communities. So once you have this, you know, and they work in synergy, it will go a long way in trying to see how to curb these issues we are talking. Now, there was this, I want to commend the current Speaker of the House of Reps, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. He tried to see how to put up a committee, a special committee on national security, you know, and that was in June last year, 2021. And memorandum came from different quarters. I sent a memorandum for the committee and order, or to the committee rather, and we made suggestions. That's the committee report, the Special National Security Summit report was submitted to the President with recommendations on how to see how these issues can be mitigated and how the challenges can be handled, you know. I made some recommendations locally, how I feel that these challenges can be handled locally. And I was opportune that my 1 or 2, 3 of my recommendations was in that report. The report was submitted to Mr. President. At the end of it, what happened to the report? Is it that the report has ended up in shelves as usual? For me, I expect that the regular security heads, you know, would have gone out ahead to look at the report. What is the recommendations that Nigerians have put forward, you know, coming from security professionals that they have put forward to see how to handle these challenges? I would have expected that. You see, and going forward, the usual security emergency meetings that the President usually have, I want to feel that or suggest that it should be, the scope should be expanded, you know, not just the heads, you know. You know, when you want to really get or know what is happening, you need to expand that number, you know, try to see how to bring in private security professionals and other major stakeholders and relevant stakeholders to come in, bring them on board and see, these are the problems, this is what we think are the solutions. But restricting it to just those service chiefs and the National Security Advisor and all that, I don't think it is proper for the nation on how to see how to move security issues forward.
Okay, well, let's have your opinion on the recent, you know, U.S. security alert.
Yes.
You know, what kind of damage do you think this kind of advisory can actually do to a country?
It causes, for instance, it affected economic activities, if you ask me.
A lot of people were in panic.
Yes, a lot of people were, you know, and they became a lot of people were skeptical about how to go about their normal businesses and all that, you know. So such alert, it sends fear, you know, into the populace, and you know, it makes the populace try to lose some kind of confidence in the security agencies that we have, you know, looking at that the alert was coming from a foreign government, you know, in your own country where you live and have hope and faith in the country, you know. So it reduces confidence, and it affects economic activities, if you ask me, because a lot of shops, malls were closed down, offices not run according to the regular or duration. You know, they close before when they are supposed to close and all that. So generally, the thing sent panic to Nigerians, and they usually retire to their houses early.
But do you think that was hasty? Do you think that was a proper thing for the U.S. government to do?
First of all, we have to understand that the terror alert wasn't meant for Nigerians. It was meant for their citizens and their staff. Before, I would say, the information got leaked to the general public, before we got to know about it. So for them, they have a mechanism in trying to see how to generate reports like that. It doesn't just come from the blues, you know. And when it has to do with terror alert or terror, you know that after the 9/11 attack on the U.S., they became the forefront of trying to see how to fight terrorism. You know, anywhere in the world, and they hear that an Al-Qaeda leader is elected or have a new leader, of course, you know how they bring them down. You know, so when the information came from them, it didn't come to me as a surprise, because I know that they have all it takes to establish that there was possibly terror plans, you know. But the unfortunate thing is that if the if they have strike, it will be Nigerians would have been the most affected, you know. So it was a good thing that the information or the intelligence came to public knowledge, and our own security agencies came up and tried to see how to beef up security and put up some very serious measures to see that the attack never happened.
Right. So, talking about some of these measures, you know, Mr. Lai Mohammed actually came out to say that, you know, recently there's actually been an increase in fight in the figure of arms and ammunition intercepted by the military, and also arrests of traffickers of illicit drugs. And he also said that there's been significant reductions in killings, violent attacks, kidnapping, rape cases, animal rustling, you know, here, because bandits and terrorists are being neutralized by the military.
Yes. Yeah, I want to believe that. As a fellow of the Nigerian Army Resource Center, I have close ties with the military, especially the Army, you know, and I am seeing the tremendous work they are doing. You can't take that away, you know. You see that they've been launching operations, like very yesterday or so, they launched one in Imo and all that, and they've been doing quite a lot, you know, clearance operations in our forest and all that, with the support of the air component. Yes, you know, supporting the ground troops and all that. So for that, I will give it to Lai Mohammed. It's the fact, and we are seeing results. You know, even Nigerians are seeing results that the military are actually doing very well, you know, in that regard.
Okay, but, you know, on the flip side, reports actually have it that, you know, these aerial bombardments and neutralization of these kidnappers, you know, has actually seen Nigerian security forces repeatedly killed and wounding, you know, civilians on, and their settlements, and bombed their settlements.
Yes. For that, you see, there's need for, that's why most times when we appear on television like this, we tell them that there's need for training and retraining. You know, if the pilots that actually carried out that operations, if they undergone a proper training, you know, they would have been able to target their enemies, you know, from wherever they are up there, you know, instead of hitting on innocent civilians that are going about their normal and lawful businesses. You know, so for that, there's need for them to undergo training and retraining, proper training, so that they can be able to get, you know, target their enemies from wherever they are up there.
Okay. I think, and well, now if you look at the issue of you know, recruitment.
Yes.
You know, I know the point has been made repeatedly about the need to increase the number.
Yeah.
But of course, the military is doing some recruitment. Do you think, and the police, do you think the pace or the numbers we are getting in would be sufficient in terms of incremental increase?
I think.
Or do we need to do some maybe massive at once?
Exactly. There's need for massive recruitment, but it depends on the facilities that's on ground to see how the number to carry, you know. So that also calls for consideration. But I think that there's need for us to do massive recruitment, considering the numbers that we have and the number of citizens that we have in this country. You know, officially the UN ratio for a policeman to per number of citizens is supposed to be like 350, 400 in an ideal and sane society where crime is at its barest minimum. But in the situation here where we find ourselves, we don't expect anything less than a policeman to that number. But because of the number of boots that we have on the ground, you have a policeman to well over 1,000 citizens. How would that work? So we need to see how to recruit more, you know, and considering the fact that a larger portion of the police protect VIPs and wealthy individuals that are in Nigeria here, then those of us that are just there are left unpoliced, you know. So there's need for the government to recruit more in all the services and the police that we have.
But some say beyond the addition of numbers,
Yes.
it's also how you manage it, especially the issue of interagency collaboration. Are these agencies speaking to themselves? Are they pulling resources together to actually prosecute these wars?
You see, at the top level, there's the synergy at that level. But when you begin to go down, you see that there's lack of synergy amongst the security agencies that we have. You see, every security agency is established either by the Constitution or the acts that establish them, and their duties and responsibilities are clearly spelled out. You know, but in the event where there is need for joint operation, you know, amongst the officers or the personnel, there should be a leader who the other agencies would take commands from. You know, so there's need for us to see how to set ego at the corner, you know, because it's a collective responsibility, you know, and the goal should be one to see that Nigeria is safe and secure, you know. So there's no need for any rivalry amongst the security agencies. Synergy is the best word for them. They should see how to work together and see that Nigeria is taken care of.
Okay, so what about internationally? Because the chief of staff to the president, you know, said the country deserves a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council,
Yes.
you know, considering its contributions to international peacekeeping and economic potential. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you see, Nigeria has been clamoring for that, you know, and I want to say it's good news because some couple of days ago, a Ghanaian was appointed the UN, the presidency of the UN Security Council. You know, so gradually Africa is coming on board. It mustn't be Nigeria specifically. An African is there. You know, so Nigeria is clamoring for more seats. You know, at the UN Security Council, and I think with dialogue and talk at the table, they will try to see how to give us some more seats for Africans to be there in the UN Security Council.
So, Stephen, there is an issue I want to have your take about.
Yeah.
You know, especially talking about these international collaborations and all that. You know, some citizens, maybe because of skepticism or lack of knowledge, wonder why Nigeria would be, you know, it has its own issue at home, but taking resources to ensure peace or to, you know, just to send peacekeeping missions abroad. I remember there was serious social media uproar recently when the Nigerian government announced a donation of vehicles to Niger Republic.
Yeah.
How significant are these things?
You see, this situation is a global thing. Nigeria also benefits from other countries through this same means we are talking about. Are you saying that the countries, other countries that donate to Nigerians don't also have their own security challenges? They also have their own security challenges. But you see, it's just a way of supporting each other, you know, because when it has to do with insecurity, for instance, when it has to do with terrorism, it's a global thing. Any country can be attacked. And you know, when a country is attacked, the effect of the attack in certain countries, it boomerangs. It affects other countries, you know. So it is not an unusual thing, you know. It's a normal thing. Nigeria is also benefiting from other countries that also have issues. They have security issues, but they still donate to see that Nigeria is safe, you know. So it's not out of place for Nigeria to begin to see how to support Niger and other neighboring countries, you know. But I think it has to do, what the government needs to do is to see how to create this awareness. Let citizens know that what we are doing is not out of place. You know, we're also benefiting from other countries. It's not abnormal and all that. Let them know. And which agency will do that? The National Orientation Agency can handle such awareness program to sensitize Nigerians, you know, and also the Ministry of Information. Lai Mohammed can also talk on that as well.
All right. Well, just before we wrap up, Mr. Stephen, let's have your final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thought is first of all, about citizens. Citizens should be mentally alert. They should be conscious of their environment, considering what we are experiencing now and the situation we find ourselves. And they should ensure that they have security emergency phone numbers on their phones in the event where they see something and they need to say something, and the relevant security agencies that they need to call or draw their attention to, you know. And for the security agencies to keep doing what they are doing. They are trying their best, and the Nigerians hope that they do more so that lives and properties are protected.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Stephen Okori, for spending time and analyzing the security situation in Nigeria with us.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Mr. Stephen Okori, his security and management consultant. And with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak on Trust TV. Thank you so much for staying tuned from beginning to end. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same station. I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Have a phenomenal week.
Thank you very much for being with us. And remember that you can always catch us up on our social media platforms, on Trust TV on Facebook, Trust TV on Instagram, and also on YouTube and other channels. Do stay with us and see you tomorrow. Have a good day. My name is Abdulaziz Abdullah.